Hello, I'm McLoughlin with my brilliant co-host Cam Stuart, and we're here for another episode of Inside of Sports Access TV. Cam, how's your day going? It's been a while, with the weather and stuff. We kind of had a little bit of a delay, but how you doing?
I've been doing all right. We've had some great sports to watch since then. We got a lot to cover. Obviously, the big story, Super Bowl 49. Me and Brian had a little disagreement about this, but I have to say it is the greatest Super Bowl of all time.
Don't get me wrong, Patriots winning the Super Bowl, always great. It was a great Super Bowl, one for the ages. I just don't think it might have been necessarily the best ever, but it's definitely up there in the top three. But yeah, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, a little Patriots bias because I thought the best Super Bowl before this one was Super Bowl 38 too, but two of the best heavyweights, two of the NFL's heavyweights, a call that took a lot of fortitude by Pete Carroll, and just an outstanding game. I don't know how you can't say it's the best. It's got to be the best. I don't know one that could be better. I mean, honestly, you've heard a lot about the Pete Carroll call, the pass call, but there was so much questioning leading up to this. I don't know what was worse, the Carroll throw call or Belichick's no timeout call, because I mean the Super Bowl is running down to 20 seconds, and if you remember, right after that insane Jermaine Kearse catch, they had to call a timeout right after because they didn't have a play ready. I mean, this was just some shoddy coaching from both sides. And obviously, I'm not saying it was a good call, but it wasn't the only thing that lost the Seahawks that game, obviously, and was not the worst thing on that drive. Definitely not.
Yeah, for sure. I think Seahawks made too many mistakes over the course of the game. I definitely think the Patriots played a pretty solid game. Again, they had their own set of mistakes, but overall, it was a great game. It was definitely one for the ages. I'm glad to see the Patriots win, as we're biased because we're both from Massachusetts. So kind of, if you're not a Patriots fan, you're frowned upon around these neck of the woods.
And as Boston sports fans, just one last thing for us to ponder throughout this show. As I look at this Malcolm Butler interception, I think, is there any more shocking one play in this great decade plus of dominance of Boston sports? Was there any more shocking one particular play out of nowhere that was better than this Malcolm Butler interception?
For the Patriots or just overall?
Just for all the Boston sports teams.
Dave Roberts' steal. Can't get better than that. I know this was a great play. I get that this was a great play, but that is probably one of the... It was definitely... I think these are two iconic plays that if you're looking at Boston or New England sports, these two plays, at least in our age, are going to be the plays that you look back at, the plays that you talk about when you're telling your grandkids, or you're telling your family members down the line about this game.
And I do think the Roberts steal is great. If they don't get that steal, the season's over. All right? But everyone in the ballpark, everyone watching TV knew that was going to happen. Not to take anything away from it. But I think the only thing that can compete with it is Ortiz's grand slam against Detroit back in 2013 Game 2. Because not only was it shocking to just wipe away 4 runs just like that, but that got them back in the series. Or else you were going down 2-0 to Detroit, going to Detroit, and facing Justin Verlander. So I just think that was the most shocking one play of this whole stretch. But I mean, something for you, the viewer, to think about as well as we go on.
Yeah, definitely. I would, hey, if you guys ever want to send us an email on your thoughts of that, definitely send an email to us. We definitely would love to talk about, some viewer thoughts.
It'll be mentioned on TV too.
Yes. That is for sure. We'll give you a little airtime, your 15 seconds of fame. All right, I think we all know that the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Go Patriots. But I think we should shift our gears over to a little college hockey, because that is...
Never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing to talk college hockey, especially since we're, as living in Massachusetts, are lucky enough to get not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Wow, I'm starting to sound like LeBron James here.
You're spot on with that one.
Yeah, many college hockey teams throughout, not even just Boston, but the whole state. And it's one of the greatest places to live if you're a hockey fan.
I mean, with all due respect to the Midwest and the great programs they have out there, Minnesota, North Dakota, Colorado College, although they've been struggling the past few years, this is the best. This is the mecca of college hockey. This is the best. East Coast, Hockey East in particular, some good ECAC teams. You know, Yale, the national championship, Quinnipiac, played them that year in the final. But I think you're pretty spot on with that one. This is the mecca. This is the best.
Yeah, every year you got teams from Boston competing for a national title in the Frozen Four. You got teams like BC who have had great stretches the last few years. You got BU who has a really solid shot this year at winning the Beanpot Hockey East Championship and getting the sweep and getting the national title, which this year is being played in Boston. The national championship, or what we call the Frozen Four, will be played at TD Garden this upcoming April 2nd and 4th. I know April hockey, but that's when it ends. So it definitely will be a little, not a little, but a great addition to the state.
Yeah, BU's having a great team. I think they're the best team in the country, to be completely honest, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. They haven't even won the Beanpot yet. That's our next thing, the Beanpot.
Yeah, the Beanpot, that was a great segue over to the Beanpot right there. But the Beanpot, as you know, it's in its 63rd year. It's to get bragging rights to the city of Boston with the 4 Division I men's hockey teams. We had a very good, solid first game last week with Harvard and BU playing each other. Definitely BU, as we talked about, surging, the number 2 team in the nation right now in the rankings for both the U.S. College Hockey Online and the NCAA's poll. Against a Harvard team that has been very good. They've had a little bit down of the last 2 or 3 weeks, but overall, a very solid season, up there in the top 5. It wasn't just 1 overtime, but 2, and it was a very long, drawn-out game, but it was one that had you on your feet the entire night. Cam, you just want to give a little insight on that? I know you were there, too.
That was unbelievable. Yeah, Brian and I were both at that game. That is one of the best hockey games I have ever been to, or ever even seen, for that matter. Harvard goalie made, I believe it was 63 saves. I think it took 100 shots total for both teams to settle the score. There was no scoring past second period until the 5th, the second overtime. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got it. Edge of your seat stuff. It may have been the best hockey game I've ever been to. It was just back and forth, and that first line of BU is just incredible offensively. That Evan Rodriguez, Jack Eichel, and Danny O'Regan, they ended up getting the game-winning goal. But what I was most impressed with was they'd give up these chances in the defensive zone and then just nonchalant, just break out 3-on-2 like it's nothing. And Jack Eichel, or going 1-on-4, just throws a backhander at the net and gets a face-off during a line change, okay? They were unbelievable. And that second game, Northeastern BC, that was no slouch either.
Yeah, that was another, edge of your seat kind of game. This was, I would say, one of the best Beanpot series, for day 1 of the Beanpot in the last 10 years. Maybe coming up to the 2009 Beanpot a little bit, that was definitely one of the other notable Beanpots in the 2000s. But boy, that Northeastern knocking off Boston College after Northeastern started the season 0-9-1. People thought they had no shot of even getting close to over 500. Right now they sit at 2 games over 500, and they have a shot to get a home game in the Hockey East tournament, beat BC 3-2 in a thriller right to the end. That Northeastern team is going to get BU a run for its money, looking for that, that sacred first Beanpot title since 1988. The wait has been excruciatingly painful for Northeastern fans who are pretty outraged that the finals got moved. So,
well, I mean, so are we.
Yeah, that was devastating. If you haven't caught up with the times, the first set of games, the semifinal games, were both pushed back a day from Monday to Tuesday a couple weeks back, and then the finals were moved from the 9th all the way to the 23rd because of a Bruins game, Celtics game, and then Disney's Frozen on Ice.
I mean,
so we had to wait. Yeah.
But I mean, you can't say enough about Northeastern. I mean, just the way they started and coming in, this was I'm sure this is their biggest game on the calendar. As much as we've said good things about BU, and how we said BU and Harvard, whoever wins that's going to win the Bean Pot, this is still BC's tournament, all right? And what was it, 5 straight wins told us that, okay? This is BC's right now, and just an incredible effort from Northeastern. I thought, while there was at times they were shaky, I thought they were in control of that game most of the night, scoring with just over a minute and a half left to win it. They definitely deserve to, and we've got a great final shaking up.
Yeah, we got a great final. The consolation game, I think, it's going to have that pull effect to this year, which you really don't usually see with a solid Harvard team, a solid BC team, who basically are playing to stay alive at a chance at the NCAA tournament. Both teams need this win and need a solid running in their conference tournament to be able to have a shot at getting that covenant spot in the finals. I would be pretty surprised if BC doesn't get in to the NCAA tournament this year. Harvard, any other chance. This is their go big or go home moment, and I think they need to grasp that.
Yeah, you hear a lot the term RPI in college basketball, which is how you do against opponents that are just as good, if not better than you. You don't often see that in the Beanpot consolation game, but that's exactly what they got. I mean, this is, especially with Harvard's struggles lately, this is going to be humongous for both teams, especially Harvard. If they can get a win over a top 4 Hockey East team, a program like Boston College, which has been the best program in college hockey since we've been watching. And I mean, yeah, you can't say enough about how big it's going to be for both teams, especially the Crimson.
Yeah, it will definitely be big. And then with 3 Hockey East teams, this entire Beanpot tournament is always a turning point into the Hockey East race, which right now BC's in the number 2 spot right now, right behind behind BU. Excuse me. So I think BU, they only need a win or 2 to secure that Hockey East regular season title, which they could get very much against Northeastern, because they play them in the Beanpot, but then also will play them in this upcoming weekend, which will be another big step. The people are saying there will be blood, as there always is between Boston crosstown rivals, and with 3 games in a span of 9 days, it's gonna be a big weekend series.
Yeah, no love lost between those 2 teams and their student bodies. We talk about BC-BU as a big rivalry. Those 2 do not like each other, and you and I saw it full well at the Beanpot. They do not like each other one bit.
Yeah, they weren't even playing each other, and there were signs, saying Eichel is an American.
Yeah.
He hates America. Same thing about Demko, which I think is funny because Demko being on the World Juniors starting goaltender for USA, Northeastern has some very good signs. If anything, their student section definitely wins the best student section at the Beanpot.
Outnumbered by BC too. I was very impressed by their student section. They always have good ones, but I think this year was definitely the best.
Yeah, I was very ranking the student sections real quick. It would go Northeastern. I would put BU before BC at least this year.
It's going to be even better this Monday.
Oh yeah.
The early game too. They still had a really good section out there. And BC usually has the numbers. I think they had the best last year. But I don't know. It just wasn't the same effect this year. They weren't as rowdy. It was definitely some cause for concern at the Heights, especially with their team and now their fan section, and now being in the consolation game of the Beanpot, something they're not used to.
Yeah, it's something that they haven't been in since 2000. I think it was 2009.
It was.
So I think you also just got to, again, looking ahead towards Hockey East tournament time with the BC-BU. We got UMass Lowell, who's going to try to fight their way into
They need that.
Yeah.
They need to win Hockey East, I think, to get in.
Yeah, especially winning it the last 2 years, and now they're really on the outside looking in at the moment. Merrimack, who started the year really hot, has kind of been felt back down to earth. Could possibly see themselves mathematically into to the Hockey East, to the NCAAs, depending on how they do in the Hockey East tournament. Again, Northeastern's another one of those teams that they could possibly sneak their way in there. I think you got to look at teams like UMass has no shot at all unless they somehow win Hockey East, which if they win Hockey East, I seriously would probably just give up on everything because UMass hockey is not good. Sorry, Mark Bertrand. I know you're a huge UMass guy because you went there, but they're not going to win.
No, absolutely not.
But then you get teams surprising teams like UConn in its first year. UConn's had some really solid wins at home and on the road.
BC tied BU over at Aganis. Bit of a rough weekend last weekend against Northeastern. Swept by them. They lost the first game 9-0. But definitely a surprising season for the Huskies.
Yeah, the Huskies are definitely in that learning curve.
UConn Huskies, excuse me. We're just talking about Northeastern too.
Sorry.
So make sure I specified.
Yeah, the UConn Huskies in their first year in the Hockey East have definitely shown great strides and have won games that a lot of people didn't think that they would be able to, at least in their first year. Their recruiting class seems to be getting stronger. UConn is one of those teams that could seriously find themselves in the middle of the pack like Notre Dame did when they first came into the league last year. Kind of find themselves in the middle of the pack of Hockey East last season as an 8 seed, this year as an 8 or 9 seed. Again, that could be a UConn team 2 or 3 years down the line here. And you could be talking about them possibly, maybe, being a team that makes a Cinderella run in a year, 2 or 3 years from now.
And yeah, I think what's going to be tough for them is recruiting within Hockey East because they're going to trying to get a lot more local guys. You get to sway them away from your BUs, your BC, UMass Lowell. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We've seen it recently in the Hockey East tournament. There's middle of the pack teams. Maine a couple years ago made it to the final. BU a few years ago knocked off BC and went to the final. And it's been good futures for them. So, I mean, I'd like to see UConn be a factor in a couple of years, but it's going to take a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it will, but I think this is definitely a move to the Hockey East was the best decision for them. Atlantic Hockey, no disrespect at all because it's Division I, but Atlantic Hockey, their previous conference, isn't the same caliber. You don't have the same amount of teams. You got Robert Morris, which is very good. But besides that, you really don't have. You got the ECAC, which Harvard is in. Yale, who won the national title 2 years ago, was in. Quinnipiac. You got, actually ECAC with Union winning the national title last year, actually hosted Clarkson for Clarkson, a women's team. So ECAC won both national titles on the women's and men's side, and I believe they also are the host for many D3 teams as well. So
they are. It's big time. ECAC for both divisions, D1 and D3. But I mean, you say it's not the same caliber as Hockey East. First off, no one is. But it's just tough to compete, and they're also on a down year. We haven't seen Union at what it was last year. Quinnipiac hasn't been quite up to par. Yale, good conference. They're not Hockey East. No one's Hockey East. But I don't even think they are the same ECAC this year.
Yeah. They're definitely not. And then you got to go look at the teams. We really don't see that much Western Mass hockey. Well, not Western Mass, but Western hockey. Well, Western Mass has UMass, so nobody really goes out there and watches that. But you get what I'm saying. Talking about Western United States hockey, you got some solid teams with Denver. You got North Dakota.
Minnesota State,
man.
Covering the top of the rankings.
Yeah, you got some seriously good teams out there, but you don't have an overall conference like Hockey East.
Because I mean, the real good Eastern teams, although you'd be surprised by the national champs the last couple of years, the really good Eastern teams are all in Hockey East. And now with all the realignments and the changing in the Midwest, you can't even name most of the conferences anymore. I mean, there's just nothing that lives up to it. As much as I like North Dakota and the great rivalries they have out there and the heck of a team they have this year, it's not like Eastern hockey. It really, nothing is.
Yeah, nothing beats Eastern hockey. I always wanted to talk a little bit about Penn State hockey. They moved into the Division I ranks last year. They were it might have been 2 years. They kind of made the transitional period, but last year was their first full year in Division I. Going to the Big Ten, which was a new hockey conference because all the teams kind of, when the Western Hockey Conference kind of dismantled a little bit, moved into that. They actually just came out the other day that they posted a profit this year. So if a team like Penn State can create a profit margin for the schools, I definitely think that teams like Arizona State, who is going to be transitioning from club hockey into the Division I ranks next year and going full in 2016-17, definitely will be one of those things to definitely watch to see how that affects teams like that, like Arizona State, and teams possibly like Alabama, Florida Gulf Coast, which a lot of people don't think could go Division I, but still seeing some Western teams, Pac-12 school teams, SEC schools moving into Division I ranks. Not going to be soon, but it's also not going to be really far away.
And I like how you mentioned the Big Ten, because what I wouldn't be surprised to see from the Big Ten soon is when they swallow their pride and expand to non-Big Ten schools from other sports. Because, you see Penn State turning a profit. North Dakota turns a profit. Denver turns a profit. Colorado College, even when they're bad, turns a profit. I just wouldn't be surprised if the Big Ten really emerges in the next couple of years and brings some of these schools in. Because there's a lot of money there for the Big Ten, and they got it in every other sport. Why not make some more in hockey?
I think also you got to look at Big Ten. Some of the schools that are Big Ten schools for other sports besides hockey still don't have Division I clubs, like Illinois.
Northwestern. I don't think that's too far off.
I definitely think that you're going to see, maybe not in the next 2 or 3 years, but in the next 10 years, the whole landscape of college hockey is going to change.
I feel the same way about lacrosse, but I totally agree with you. We're seeing, as you said, Alabama, Arizona State. They already have an Alabama Huntsville. They've had that for a couple years now, well, for a while now. But it's going to be changed, and it's great for the sport. Unbelievable. If you can get these big-time revenue schools in there like Alabama, it's going to be huge for college hockey.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see a Alabama Frozen Tide play a BU. Even if it's away, I would travel down there to go see that, because that would just be something that you really don't see, because a lot of the southern schools, a lot of people will go down and will be kind of dumbfounded to be like, oh, you have rinks? Of course you have hockey rinks. There's hockey rinks all throughout the entire country. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that, though.
Yeah, it's definitely more than shopping malls now. When my father lived down south, he said that's all you could do was skate at shopping malls. But I'm interested to see the fanfare. We see such great stuff for Alabama football, Arizona State football, that kind of stuff. Hockey's not a hard sport to fall in love with, especially when you like big hits like they do down south. So, just the expansion in general, I think it's going to be outstanding. And I'm very interested to see what kind of fan sections we can get out there.
Yeah, that would definitely is going to be something that we're going to want to look into going forward. Now, we're going to kind of transition to something. Cam has compiled a list of his top sports movies. You want to go into a little bit more detail about what we're going to be talking about right now?
Well, I limited it to 10. And this was one of the toughest lists I've ever had to make of anything ever. And Brian and I have a lot of disagreements. I haven't even told him yet what it is, so we're going to have quite the banter here. So we're going to start it here with number 10, emotional movie, Sound in My Heart, Brian's song, about Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers' relationship with the Chicago Bears. Great movie, James Caan, Billy D. Williams. It definitely just hits hard, but it's actually a very well-made movie for the 70s. Number 9, one that not a lot of people have seen. It's from 1940, but great stuff here. Newt Rockne, All-American, with Tom O'Brien as Newt Rockne, Ronald Reagan as George Gipp. Outstanding movie about Rockne's career with Notre Dame. Goes in with George Gipp, and it's really great stuff for such an old movie. Number 8, I don't recommend it for our children watching here, but for all you older hockey fans, Slapshot. Great one with the Hanson brothers. Paul Newman's in it as well, but funny stuff, actually based off the experiences of a Bowdoin hockey player, Ned Dowd, who plays Ogie Oglethorpe. That's Ned Dowd, who's based off of number 7. I had to pick one from this series, so I had to. This was tough that I had it only at number 7. Rocky IV, and he faces Ivan Drago, and in the Soviet Union, it's basically the Cold War in a boxing ring, and it definitely makes you pretty emotional being an American. So, recommend that one. Number 6, Glory Road, is about the 1966 Texas Western Miners basketball team that really did a lot of the integrating in the South. They brought in 7 black players, started 5 in the national championship game. I won't give any spoilers. Outstanding movie. Number 5, one of your personal favorites, Remember the Titans, another integration one about football in suburban D.C., actually. It's in Alexandria, Virginia, and how they come together and try to win. Number 4, the greatest baseball movie ever, bar none, Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come. If you haven't seen it as a baseball fan, I feel really bad for you. Number 3, the great one, Miracle, the best hockey movie out there. Also, the least amount of historical inaccuracies I have ever seen in a sports movie. Truly outstanding. Number 2, best basketball movie ever. It starts and ends with this one, Hoosiers. Story of the 1954 fictitious town of Hickory, Indiana, and how they come together and try to rise to fame. And number 1, the best, Friday Night Lights. West Texas football team and how they come together through some adversity. Billy Bob Thornton as Coach Gary Gaines. I'm not going to give any more away because you have to see it to believe it. It's just that good.
All right, there's a lot of discrepancies that I think that might be wrong with that list.
We'd like to hear what you think too.
Well, we're running out of time, so now you're gonna have to check back next segment to be able to see my list, and then we're gonna discuss whose is better. We're going to discuss about the movies, but we're kind of running out of time today. Thank you again for watching the show. Cam, you just want to quickly go over what you wanted to say.
So our just last little nugget here, Rockland basketball. They won on senior night against Mashpee. They have now qualified for the state tournament 44 times in the last 47 years. Truly remarkable run. Their boys' all-time leading scorer, John Tolmie from the class of 1964, just got his number 14 retired. Very deserving for Mr. Tolmie. Couldn't make it out because he's out living in Hawaii, so we don't feel bad for you now.
All right. Well, thank you very much for checking out the show again. We appreciate all your views. Definitely check us out next week because we got a lot more to talk about. Talk about Beanpot, more movies, sports movies in that case. Check us out at InsiderSportsAccess.net. Check us out on Twitter at InsiderSports1. Check us out on Facebook. Check us, Cam and I, out on Twitter. Definitely check us all out. Find me between the pages of your Whitman Hanson Express. We love to hear it, so email us, tweet us, Facebook us. We want to know what you guys want us to talk about, and we want to hear your insight too. So we appreciate everything you have. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you next time.
Go
so
Duke.
long.